Hello everyone and welcome back to Randomized Gaming. I am once again your host, Random Gamer Riven. Now today we're taking a little look at a recent released retro game. This is actually a collection of Jaleco fighting titles. It's called the Jaleco Brawler pack and it's been released by Retrobit, who've started publishing a few sort of retro games and other bits and merchandise. And this is the European version we're going to be taking a sneaky look at. They're quite cheap, so we thought we'd actually pick one up and see what it's like, notably because the actual Rushing Beat series, which is included, is quite expensive to buy if you want a whole Japanese set, so this is actually a great way to pick it all up in one go at the price of around £25. So this pack includes 4 games. Annoyingly, it's using the English versions of the Rushing Beat series, except for the 3rd game, which is using the Japanese version, which is an actual real plus, but that's only in the European version. There is the PAL and NTSC one. PAL one comes with Rushing Beat Shura. The US version, or the NTSC version of this pack, comes with Peacekeepers, which is the English release of Rushing Beat Shura, but that version was heavily edited and altered and not in a good way. So what you get in this Jaleco Brawler pack is Rival Turf, which is Rushing Beat 1, Brawl Brothers, which is Rushing Beat Run or Ran, depending on how you want to pronounce it, and that was basically the 2nd game, and you get Rushing Beat Shura or Peacekeepers in the US version, which is the 3rd Rushing Beat game. And finally you also get Tuff E Nuff, or as it's known in Japan, Dead Dance, which is a one-on-one verse fighter. So I don't need to say that much about Tuff E Nuff. It's a pretty dire fighter. It's more a novelty than anything else. It's got some nice visuals, but there's stuttering and pausing whenever you connect. It really doesn't play well. You can see why Jaleco were not masters of one-on-one beat-em-ups. The Rushing Beat series was actually quite a good scrolling beat-em-up series, however, and this is the first game running in the background now. And this is one series where you can clearly see the developers got better with each and every release. Now, one gripe I do have off the outset about the first Rival Turf game is the fact that, again, it's not including the Japanese release. The reason being, one, you get some terrible name changes, so as a result the main characters that are supposed to be the main characters in all 3 games are actually named differently in the English versions in all 3 games. But in Rival Turf's case, for the PAL and American release, they cut out the intro and cut short the ending. Don't know why Jaleco did that. The only 2 reasons I can surmise is, one, they wanted to save cartridge space. Perhaps they could get away with a cheaper cartridge if they took out the intro and cut down the ending. The other one is they may just simply have not wanted to bother translating it, which was a classic thing to do quick releases back then, as often they just wouldn't bother to translate the games. It's a fairly straightforward beat 'em up, as you can see here, and I'm just going to show you a snippet of the first level. We're going to do that for all 3 games, and a few fights from Tuff E Nuff at the end. But for now I'm just going to let the first one play out just so you can see how it plays. It's quite a good scrolling beat 'em up. It's not perfect, the collision isn't quite as good as it should be, but it's an enjoyable one. So on to the 2nd game in the Rushing Beat series, known as Brawl Brothers in the West. With this one is then the fact that you can actually change it to the Japanese version via a cheat code, which is actually really helpful because I do prefer how level 1 plays out in the Japanese version and not in the Western version. But as both versions are included on the cart via a cheat code, you have to press BAXY repeatedly on the title screen logo, as I recall, to change the version. Basically, it then brings up a corrupted graphic for the title screen. You then press down 3 times, press start, it will then take you into the option menu that will then become Rushing Beat Run, and then you can go back and play through the game. The other thing is you get to the Japanese names if you do the cheat, whereas you get alternative English names, which are again a bit silly, and I don't know why they changed them. So as you can see from the gameplay, this one, unlike the original where there are only 2 characters, one for player 1, one for player 2, this one gives you a choice of 5 characters, each with a good range of moves. There's actually a couple of hidden moves as well you can trigger by using a cheat. There's 5 characters, each of them have their different perks. The game plays a lot faster. Some characters are actually quite strong, so they tend to play a bit slower. The faster characters I tend to actually prefer, they play a lot faster. There's some really nice visuals in this one, nice big bold sprite. And as you can see midway through the first level, you actually get quite a cool sequence where the background choppers flying back and forth gunning at you. So if you're a fan of scrolling beat-em-ups, this is definitely one to pick up if you can see a copy fairly cheaply, as is Rival Turf, but I do prefer Brawl Brothers quite a bit over the original. Okay, last but not least, we have Rushing Beat Shura. I think it's pronounced Shura. This was known as Peacekeepers in the West, and it never got a European release, only an American one. The first two did, however, get PAL releases, I should state. So Rushing Beat Shura is probably the most visually impressive and the biggest of the three games. It's by far the best one as well because the combat really fast, fluid. The other fact is there are numerous routes through the game, and although unlike the second game there are 5 characters to choose from, this one there's only 4 to start with. You can unlock 2 hidden characters, and one of them is Rick Norton from the original game. You can see, in fact in our video we're going to quickly show you, you can have a quick special discussion with Douglas Build, who's the other character from the original game. He only makes a cameo role in this one, but you can unlock and play Rick Norton. Now, depending which way you go through the game, so at the start, midway through the first level, you get a choice between going up and right, and depending which way you go depends which boss you fight and which stage you do next. There are actually multiple endings. The stages change completely depending which routes you go. So if you take the top route on the first stage, you end up in an underground sewer prison. If you take the right route, you end up on a motorway, and as you're fighting along the motorway, you can see a sea in the background, then a sub comes along and starts blasting rockets at you. There's some really nice mechanics for scrolling beat 'em up in this one, and it does do really well. In fact, the stages are constantly changing, and there's always something different going on. So often you'll find like different enemies and sort of scenery attacking you and things like that. Really good, really great. This one definitely comes from the Dungeons and Dragons school with the multiple routes, and it's certainly a very good game. These days, however, Rushing Beat Shura as a result is actually very expensive to buy, both an original Japanese version, which I think will set you back around 40 to 50 quid minimum. The US version will apparently set you back at least £100 at the time of speaking, I should say, as prices can fluctuate. They may go up, they may come down as well. Now, before we jump into Tuff E Nuff, I'm just going to quickly talk about the package itself. So as you can see from this picture, which I've grabbed from Retrobit's official Twitter, so you can see the game package comes with a classic US SNES style box. You get some pin badges, you get some stickers, you get a pamphlet, there's an inner plastic tray in the cartridge itself, and the cartridge itself also comes with a dust holder. While this package isn't going to satisfy boxed Super Nintendo collectors, it is a great way of picking up all the Rushing Beat games in one go, rather than having to buy them individually. And with it costing around £25 here in the UK, it's certainly a much cheaper alternative as well to buying them individually. But even I'll admit, nothing quite beats owning the original boxed Super Nintendo or Super Famicom versions. So I do have a couple of complaints about this package, and hopefully Retrobits will be able to improve upon the flaws we point out in this for future releases. First off, the pamphlet manual is woefully inadequate for all the games. It even has a number of misprints and mistakes, as for example, it doesn't even list the run button in Rival Turf. LNR is listed as not being used in the actual pamphlet, yet in game and even in the option menu, LNR are listed as the ability to run in the original Rival Turf. Likewise, for Rushing Beat Shura, Taunt, which is set to the X button, is listed as not being used, when actually you need to use the Taunt button to actually trigger the super moves. Now, with the original manuals for Rival Turf and Tuff E Nuff weighing in at 20 and 30 pages respectively each, I don't expect this pamphlet to include all that information, certainly a lot of its backstory and filler. I do, however, expect it to include at least the instructions for how to use some of the basic moves and the basic button prompts. As it is, much of that information is missing, and I did have to resort to looking up a website guide and video guide to see how you perform some of the moves. This type of basic information should be included in the instruction pamphlet. The other major concern I have is with the actual cartridge design itself. the black and red cartridge that Retrobit have designed is designed as a multi-regional cartridge that works in SNESs and Super Famicoms from all regions. However, perhaps due to a slight oversight on Retrobit's behalf, they haven't included an area for the locking plate when you turn the power on. For those of you who don't know, if you actually look at the Super Nintendo, when you turn the power on, a plate ejects forward from the flap and locks the cart into position. Because there's no locking plate, instead of locking the cart into position to make it sturdy, strong, it's actually bumping the cartridge, and as a result I was often finding it would bump the cartridge and then cause the game not to run. You'd often just get a black screen, and that would require me turning off the SNES and reseating the cartridge. I had this occur to me quite a few times while playing the game, and this was quite annoying because turning it on, it shouldn't be being knocked by the power on plate, so that's something Retrobit do need to look at and fix for future releases. My slight final complaint is the fact that as it's just ROMs on a cartridge, I really felt Retrobit should have included the ROMs for each game from the PAL, NTSC-U and NTSC-J if available. I don't see why it didn't include all the different versions to let users experience them, and there could have just been a note on the thing saying not all versions may work with your console. Had they done that, I feel Retrobit would have made a more complete package, and it would have allowed users to experience the superior version of Rival Turf in the forms of the original Rushing Beat, and allow US owners who've got the NTSC version to play the superior Rushing Beat Shura over the Peacekeepers. Finally, we come to Tuff E Nuff, which is a one-on-one fighter, and it was known as Dead Dance in Japan. It is terrible, I should add, and that's literally all I need to say about it. It's a pretty poor one-on-one fighter. Now, one thing I should point out is we were playing the PAL Jaleco Brawler pack, and we were being a bit cheeky in playing it on the NTSC system, and all the games actually run on an NTSC system except for Tuff E Nuff. So in order to capture this footage of Tuff E Nuff, what I've done is I've just recorded the very start where you get the message that says this can't be played on your system, and then I've actually swapped over to our original NTSC cartridge, as we do here at Randomised Gaming own an NTST version of Tuff E Nuff. But I can confirm all 4 games do work on the PAL version on a PAL Super Nintendo, as we tried them on both. Interestingly, the US version of this pack, or the NTSC version, includes the Peacekeepers, which is the US Rushing Beat Shura, and that version apparently doesn't work on PAL systems, hence why they had to use the Japanese version of the game. And if you are wondering why we recorded this at 60Hz and not on a PAL system at 50Hz, the simple reason is because 60Hz NTSC speed is what these games were designed to be played at by the developers. So I don't need many words to describe Tuff E Nuff. It's a pretty dire one-on-one verse fighter. The main reason being there's a serious problem with the collision in that every time you throw or connect with a punch or even block an attack, the game pauses. So fighting is really disjointed and stuttery. You'll see it in the video as well. There's a pause with every time you connect with an attack. It's just really bizarre. It's one of those games that was obviously designed during the Street Fighter 2 era, and as we used to find, if you bought one-on-one fighters that weren't made by Capcom, SNK or the Mortal Kombat developers, you were in for a pretty rough ride. So yeah, this is more a novelty than anything else, and while it's nice they included it on the collection, you really aren't going to be playing it a lot. So as the rest of this footage plays out, that leaves me with just enough time to say I have been your host, Random Gamer Riven, on behalf of Randomised Gaming, and as always, if you enjoyed this video, please do press that like button, and if you like our content, please do of course subscribe to our YouTube channel here at Randomised Gaming. Press the subscribe button, and of course you can press the bell button for additional notifications. Last but not least, you can follow us on Twitter and you can follow us on Tumblr, and those links will be in the video description as always. Thank you for watching. And I think you deserve a cookie if anyone can watch to the end of this Tuff E Nuff footage. You get it's bad.